A very warm welcome to everyone and thank you for joining us. I'm Francesca D'Souza, bringing you the Xpert F.A.C.T series brought to you by Protect Me. Protect Me, as the name indicates, is a company set up to keep you updated, informed, and maybe even provide solutions to protect you. You either being a company, an individual, or just there as a group of people. It emphasizes on protecting, and it starts with you. Co-hosting with me is a very young, talented entrepreneur, passionate about cybercrime, and is a cyber soldier. Mirzad is also the co-founder and partner of Protect Me. Welcome, Mirzad, and thank you for hosting with me. Last but not the least, the introduction that you've been waiting for, our guest speaker, Mr. Davey. He's logging in from the UK, fabulous presenter and speaker, and an expert in cybercrime and cybersecurity. Starting his career in the UK Armed Forces in communication, followed by a number of years in fighting cybercrime, his passion has driven him to run and operate open source intelligence offices and also cybersecurity campaigns. His mission is just to educate you as an individual, as companies small or big, and also educate parents. It is my pleasure to welcome you, Dave. Over to you.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So that was a very good introduction. I'm very humbled by it. Can you now see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So this is the presentation. So a little bit about Protect Me there, and the wonderful hosts that we have.
Thank you. So that's Fran.
Again, yeah, so a little bit about me right there. So I actually am also a foster care system of a cyber volunteer, and I give a lot of advice to parents that are in the foster care system as well. So welcome to today's session, Hacking the Human and Becoming a Human Firewall. Something that I bang on quite a lot about, as people see a lot of my LinkedIn posts, that I'm always an advocate for the human firewall, and users are not the weakest link and they can be the strongest link within the organization. So first of all, we'd like to set the scene. So anybody can be a victim, that's something to take away. Just a few quick points here. Small and medium businesses cease trading after 6 months after a large cyber attack. That's normally due to legal regulatory fines and reputational damage. Adults between the age of 35 and 44 are more at risk, and that's what the research seems to show. However, I seem to find that children and elderly are targeted a lot more, and the next point goes on to advocate that a little bit more, where we see children are becoming targeted more with online scams. And 15 billion elite passwords and usernames are currently on the dark web as of the date of this presentation. And so that's something just to keep into mind.
A lot more also during COVID. There have been a lot more cyber attacks during COVID, yeah?
Yeah, I think every day that I've logged on, I've seen a ransomware attack. And it doesn't just encrypt your data, it actually steals your data as well. So that's something to bear in mind. I'll go on to a little bit more about that in a minute. So what are the motivations for fraud, scams, phishing, whatever it may be? And it's quite simply, it's financial gain. It's to line the pockets of the threat actor. So we have this Instagram scam that I've seen here. This was a few years ago. But essentially, you would buy into this lucrative scheme and you'd get X amount of return on investment. However, that wasn't what it was. That wasn't all it seemed. As it went on, the threat actor here withdrew 3.5 million from everybody's accounts, accumulated the money and ran off, and then posted a picture on Instagram of him posing in front of a Ferrari. He was arrested for it, but it just shows how brazen they are about this kind of activity. So what is human hacking, or social engineering as some people call it? It's essentially hacking without code, and it is commonly the way in for a lot of threat actors nowadays. So when you see a big ransomware breach, you normally find out that it's due to human error or some form of social engineering. So this is more for sophisticated attacks where they study the target, they understand who they are attacking, and that can be just gathering information about who the target is. So here we see that they can use specialist tools, they can use social media sites, dark web, image searches and online forums. And this just gives you a bit of a picture about who you're targeting. And then that's what they do. People share a little bit too much. And then this is what we find that threat actors prey on. So be mindful before you post. Make sure that it can't be used against you. And this, again, is more for sophisticated attacks. The plan of attack. So much like the Lockheed Martin kill chain for a cyber attack, there is a methodology behind a social engineering attack. So first of all, they would identify the target, define the requirements, gather the data, and if they need more data, they'll pivot to find more data, prepare the attack, and attack. So you need to be asking yourself the questions below. Who are they targeting? What data do they need? Where will they look? So will it be your Facebook? Will it be LinkedIn? Will it be YouTube? Could more data be found? And how can I target the victim? What is their weakness? So just think, how could you be targeted? What is your weakness? And that's something that you need to ask yourself. What would you be susceptible to? I mean, for me, if somebody offered me like 10,000 Pop-Tarts, I would probably go for that. So now we need to look at the autonomy of a scam. What actually is going on? So we have the pretext. So we hear a lot about red teams going into organizations with a box of donuts, saying the CEO is just celebrating the most successful quarter of this year. So they're celebrating with donuts, so they walk into the organization, and the security guard believes it because it's for the CEO, so he must let them in. There's a sense of urgency there. So that's the pretext there. And because they got the donuts, they've gained the truth. So just enough to execute the job. And they've exploited the trust there as well. And the end game is they're in the organization, they can steal the data, they can walk around the offices, steal any documents. So we have quite a setup here. We have the pretext, the fabricated truth, and we have the gain of trust, and we have the exploitation of the trust, and we have the end game, which is lining the pockets. So that's something that you need to be wary of. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit more soon. So then we go on to the story of the Trojan horse, possibly one of my favorite social engineering attacks. It's in history, and one simple mistake ended a 10-year war and made the Greeks victorious. So King Odysseus came up with the idea of building a horse full of Greek soldiers and offering it to the city of Troy, and their iconic animal was a horse. So they thought, oh, the Greeks have surrendered. Let's bring this horse in, put it in front of the temples, and let's celebrate. So while the soldiers are out getting drunk, all these Greek soldiers descended on the city and lay siege to the city of Troy, ultimately winning a 10-year war, which was genius. And it was a simple mistake that they made. They didn't question the horse. They didn't understand what was inside it. They didn't want to know. They just took the truth as it was. So they accepted the pretext, and the Greeks gained the trust of the Trojans. So this is what we find. And this is an example of social engineering history. You will see quite a lot of deception in World War II and World War I, like moving your troops to a different area, broadcasting their message to the enemy soldiers that you've moved your soldiers there. And all of a sudden, the enemy move their soldiers there, and you go around to the other side. It's happened so many times, and it's just about the questioning the truth. So then we need to know, what do they exploit? What in a person do they exploit? So we have fear, curiosity, empathy, greed, and finally, guilt. So fear, again, we go back to that sense of urgency of the CEO. There could be a fear that you might be losing your job if you don't get these donuts to the CEO. You know, the curiosity, there could be a YouTube video with all these fantastic banners going on. Kylie Jenner's just done this, click here to find out what she's done. But the link may take you to the wrong website, download ransomware, you lost all your data, now you're bankrupt, now you've got no money. Probably not that elaborate, but you get the picture. Empathy, this one's quite horrible. I've actually seen some fake charities set up for people in need. So again, this is horrible. Just go back to questioning the charities. If it's a charity, they would have a registered number, so just be careful of that one. Greed, so everyone knows the infamous Nigerian prince scam that will give you 45 million if you give them all your credit card details. Again, if you're in a bit of financial trouble, you may be susceptible to this kind of attack. So again, it's all about questioning what's going on. And then the guilt factor as well, that could be tied into empathy, making you feel sorry for something for you to perform an action. Because humans don't like to be uncomfortable. They want to be in a comfortable position. So they would do anything to get themselves out of that position. So attack vectors, how do they attack you? How do they approach the victim? So we have the infamous phishing email. Everybody's had one. We have phishing. I'm pretty sure everyone's had one of those as well. You have a phone call pretending to be HMRC and the police are going to come bust your door down. We have smishing as well, which is basically phishing over text messages. That's quite popular now. I'm seeing quite a lot come through PayPal links with HMRC. Pop-up alerts. You don't see this as commonly now because browsers are quite good at protecting people against these kind of attacks. Lucrative deals, going back to the first slide with the Instagram scammer. Again, if you invest in something, you get a lot back. It's normally not the case. And if you win a competition that you didn't enter, you probably didn't, it's probably not real. So that's just something to be wary of.
Yeah.
So what we need to understand is these are social engineers. They are trying to use social cues and talking points in order to make the victim believe their narrative, make them believe that something is happening that is their truth. They're making you buy into this. So we need to understand that. And we need to know how we can challenge this. So let's have a look at the fake virus, the pop-up alert that we see. So instantly we can look at a few points on the screen to understand that this is fake. So I just Googled the support number on this and it doesn't actually appear to be Microsoft's support number, which is a shock. Not really. But if you Google Microsoft support number, it will tell you that that's fake. So always Google the company that they pretend to be and just verify some details. The unusual looking domain is actually an IP address. You won't see a company like Microsoft using an IP address as a domain or URL. So always check the address bar, make sure you're going to the right place. So I done a whois lookup. I took this a little bit further. So just doing a whois lookup on the IP address here, it actually says it's from DigitalOcean and not Microsoft. It's a Microsoft service. It will be hosted at Microsoft. So whois lookup is a tool that you can find on Google. So if you simply type in Google and do whois lookup, it will give you a nice little web page and you just enter the domain or the IP address that you're going to.
If I could just add a point here, yeah. I think it's very important to also check the subdomain. And rather than just the domain, it's important to also check the subdomain. Or sometimes it'll be Microsoft, but it'll just be micro SOFT and there might just be an underscore there. So it's very important to also check the domain very carefully, which is why the whois lookup is so interesting as a tool to use to actually verify domain.
Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, the whois lookup can confirm the legitimacy of the domain. And so it's very important. So we need to understand, what if we call this number? What if we call the number that was on the screen? And that's something that a lot of people ask me. Because I've actually managed to do a recording of one of these calls, but it wasn't very good quality. I was going to show it, but it's not very good quality. You can barely hear it. So that's something I need to do on my part. So if you get a call, they always have a script. And if you call the number, they have a script. They're not technical people. They've got a script that they talk about. And that's just to try and throw you off to make you buy into their lie. So talk to them back, social engineer them back, ask them your account details. If they're a legitimate company offering support, they must have some form of account details about yourself, or at least have information about yourself. There is no tech support company on this planet that will allow you to pick up the phone and offer tech support. There's got to be some sort of sales process and marketing process just to get you that support function. You don't just simply pick up the phone, give them an Amazon gift card and they give you support. That's not how it works. So they must have legitimate company details. They must have legitimate information about yourself. Ask them questions from where they claim to be. I had one call that actually claimed to be from California. So I went onto Google, started asking questions about the general area, and all of a sudden they couldn't answer it because I put them on the spot. If you put a scammer on the spot or a fraudster on the spot, they get very uncomfortable. Going back to humans don't like to be uncomfortable. So they would try and talk their way out of that situation really quickly.
Okay, Jay, can I interrupt for one sec? Someone raised their hand here. Natalie, so I'm going to allow you to talk, yeah? Do you want to ask us a question or something? I'm going to open this up to you, yeah? Natalie, you've raised your hand. Okay then, moving on.
Okay, So another thing that you can do is make up a fake person. So ask them what department they're in. Are they in IT support? Oh, I've got a friend that works for your company. I think he's in the same department. Let me just go message him. Again, you've just made them uncomfortable because you're just about to uncover them. So if they were a real legitimate company, they could verify that that person doesn't work there, and they won't get panicky about it. And the best advice of all, simply put the phone down and call the legitimate number that you Google back up. So like that fake tech support pop-up that had the fake number, phone up Microsoft tech support, and if you're a Microsoft customer, they will help you. When you first load up your Windows operating system, it asks you for an email address because you're now a customer of Microsoft. So you always have their kind of support going on there. Obviously, you've got to pay for some of their support models, but that's done through legitimate means and not through Amazon gift cards. So always validate the caller before trusting the caller. And that's something to be wary of. Make sure you know who you're talking to and validate it. Much like when you log into a web page, you use your username, that's an identity, that's a claim. Your password is the validation, the authentication of that identity claim. And then we have the phishing email. I'm sure everybody's had one of these. First point of call is a suspicious email address. That's not from Microsoft.com. It's actually from lausd.net. That's not Microsoft's domain. There's a sense of urgency here as well. So that's something to question. I don't think Microsoft have such an abrupt approach to this kind of situation. There's poor grammar here. I don't think a company as big as Microsoft is going to have this kind of this kind of approach. And they're going to have peer reviews. They're going to have marketing teams involved. It's going to look a lot more professional. And if you simply hover your mouse over this link in the bottom left of the corner or bottom right, depending on your mail client, it actually tells you where it goes to. And if it doesn't go to a Microsoft.com domain, don't click it. But even if you verify that link, be careful, exercise caution, even if you understand where that link's going. Overall, it's a pretty unprofessional email. A company as big as Microsoft will not have an approach like this. So question everything, validate everything. So this is quite a niche topic. A lot of people don't like to talk about this, but I do. Sextortion. We see these quite a lot. I've had so many of these come up. So what they do is they use fear and the sense of the unknown. So their pretext is they have your password and they've been recording you, and they're going to leak all your details if you don't pay, kind of like a ransom, but they don't actually have anything. What they've done here is they've used a publicly disclosed data breach. They've used the password in that and the email and just sent you this. So if this is actually still your password, I do recommend changing it because it's in the public. And I've included the logo here for Have I Been Pwned? And that's a service where if you put your email address in, it will tell you if you have been involved in a data breach or not. If you have, change your details and use two-factor authentication where possible. Protect your accounts and protect your details. So again, you can check your email against publicly disclosed data breaches.
I think
these are simply not real.
Yeah, I think the takeaway from this is not to panic when you get these kind of mails. Yeah.
Oh no, don't panic. They've got nothing. They're just trying to make you pay into something.
Change your password. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you do get it, just step away, take a breath, have a cup of coffee, change your passwords, two-factor authentication, delete the email, sorted.
Yeah.
So the smisher, much like a phishing email, but it's over text message. Again, as we've talked about before, Mirzad, we just need to look at the URL. We need to look at the subdomains here. So the top level domain here is always the .net or .com. So here we have app08.net. That's not HRMC. And this other one here, this one's quite interesting. The other one on the left, we have co.uk /pending-payment online. So that's the domain there. So it actually looks like it's a URL. It looks like it's a big hyperlink, but the domain is quite long. So what you need to understand is, one, HRMC is probably not going to approach you like this. So again, phone the company. Two, before you click anything, just look. Is it the right domain? Is it a .gov domain? If not, don't click it. Phone the relevant number. This one is a topic close to my heart, the child scams. So we've got a massive boom of online gaming, transactions, and we have a lot of children now that are trying to be the best at the games, pay to win. They're trying to get all the really good gear, impress their friends. So they ask mommy and daddy for the credit card or the debit card to buy them in-game currency, to go get these skins and go get all these packs and stuff. But when you refuse the access to that debit card because they've not been good this year or not been good this month, then all of a sudden they go on Google and they type in how to get free in-game currency for XYZ game. And then you see stuff like currency generators, which are, 9 times out of 10, they're malware or they're to steal your credentials. We have fake applications such as game trainers and cheat engines, which again can be malware or they're to steal credentials. A fake website, which is simply there to steal credentials. And we have people in-game that offer you, give me all of your gear and I will double it and I'll give you all that gear back. So these trust scams that go on. So there is actually a very lucrative market now that's opened up for scammers to target children. As disgusting as it seems, they do it. And it's something to be aware of. With all this in-game currency and these microtransactions, it's also lining the pockets of scammers and threat actors.
This is not something that's very new. This has been there since the advent of gaming. Yeah, I remember when GTA came out, I used to go online and check for hacks and for little tricks, and I ended up downloading a ton of malware back in the days. Yeah, so so this is nothing that's new. I just think they've become more sophisticated over technology, and I think we should just be a lot more careful now. Yeah.
Yes. So I actually, a cybersecurity professional, hand on heart, I actually fell for my first scam when I was younger, playing a game called RuneScape. Someone came up to me and said they're going to trim my armor. I gave them all my armor and they ran off and never heard from them again. So that's when I realized I've been scammed. So, and I still feel bad about it to this day, but it happens.
Likewise.
And that was in like 2003, 2004. So yeah, it wasn't a fun time. Yeah. So let's have a little look into protecting yourself. So I have these 3 rules here about protecting yourself. That's question it, do not click it, and do not transmit it. And I'm going to go into these in a little bit more detail. So question it. Question the email, the text message, or the phone call. Again, what you're trying to do here is trip up the caller. If they're a legitimate caller, they can confidently answer these questions. If they can't, they'll be uncomfortable, they may get irate, and they may get rude. A professional company won't do that. So all of a sudden, you've unearthed this caller. Do not click it. So validate the links, even if they're verified, exercise caution. If you're still not sure, you can open up this email or open up this link just simply using free tools on Google. So if you Google link expander, you can type in a link in there and it will tell you where it redirects to. And do not transmit it. So do not transmit sensitive information to unsolicited callers or emails, just because you don't want this information out in the wild. If it's a legitimate company, they will have your data or harvest your data as such in more secure, legitimate means.
Okay.
So protect your devices. Again, the 3, stop it, update it, secure it. So stop it, you want to ensure that you have an antivirus solution on your machine, which is kept up to date with regular scanning. So there's a lot of vendors out there. I've included a link in the goodie bag at the end to the top 10. So just pick one that's right for you. A lot of them come with all the bells and whistles that you may not need, or you may need them. Some of them come with a free VPN attached on, so you may need it, and update it. So this is one of my biggest pet peeves is, especially when you work in a large organization, you have a lot of third-party applications that are installed, and they are normally the way in for a lot of attackers. They send an email that has an attachment, they click on the attachment, it executes, and it exploits a vulnerability within these applications. So keep them up to date as much as possible. And if you don't need it anymore, simply just remove it. What I seem to find is a lot of people hoard applications. I know I do. I'm no saint. So sometimes I need to completely re-image my computer because I can't bother to remove everything. Secure it. So we have all this mobile technology and has lots of data on it, high volumes of data as well, I may add. If it's not encrypted, somebody can pick it up off the floor because you've dropped it, plug it in using specialist tools and extract all the data from it. So there is means and methods out there of encrypting your mobile device, your laptop. So a simple Google search will give you some more information on how to do that. If you have any questions about that, you can ask me personally. So protect your device as well with a secure login. So if you drop your phone, 9 times out of 10, if people can't get into it with a PIN, they're probably just going to throw it away or destroy it or just wipe it and sell it, which is good because you don't want your data out there in the wild. So again, put the PIN on it and encrypt it. So make sure people can't just see it. Worst thing is people picking up my phone because I've dropped it and seeing my really horrible selfies. I don't want that. So protect your privacy. Again, the 3 rules: safeguard it, hide it, and secure it. So safeguard it. So when you use a browser, it actually does quite a lot of tracking on, get a lot of cookies that have a lot of your data involved. With the advent of GDPR, you've got to accept all the cookies, and you've got to ensure that you allow people to control the cookies a lot more. But there is a lot more tracking involved on browsers. So there is a lot of browsers out there that give you some more control of security and privacy. But again, there's also a lot of plugins out there. So check the reputation of plugins before you install them, because a lot of them can undermine the security controls that you have on these browsers. Hide it. So using a VPN can actually scramble up the data, make it unreadable to a man-in-the-middle attack. So this will avoid people stealing your data. A lot of the times when you transmit over to banking websites, they use something called HTTPS, which is actually encrypted transmission. But again, you want to be safe and secure because you don't know, you're not constantly checking if these websites are secure. So use a VPN to hide your traffic and secure it. Ensure any highly sensitive data, such as if you've got any medical data on your machines about yourself or anything like that, or anything you really don't want people to know about you, but you need to store it, like your password, anything like that, encrypt it and store it securely. So if you have a massive list of passwords, make sure it's encrypted or in the password manager. And my advice is don't go putting stuff that's highly sensitive in the cloud just in case something happens. Secure it yourself using your own means. So something that's really close to my heart is protecting children. So what I've done here is I've just included a nice list here of my top go-to rules to protect children. So the top one here is use a pseudonym for online services. So I find that a lot of people like to use their first name or second name followed by their date of birth. That could potentially identify that child or the person who's behind that gamer tag. So just be careful when you're naming these accounts. Depending on these rules are age dependent, so this depends on the age of the child. Periodically review accounts that your child may have, just in case that they've updated their bio with a bit too much information, such as location details and too much information about themselves. What I seem to find is a lot of accounts, they have their location on, they have any other social media links on to their different pages. And that is brilliant for an attacker because you can build up a picture of the target very quickly.
Yeah.
Engage in regular chat. So again, it's age dependent, but when you talk to your child a lot more, they start to understand the risks and the risk associated with it. Much like when you cross a road, instinctively, you've taught your child to look both ways before crossing, just to make sure there's no impending danger. If you now teach your child to just question everything, and then they'll start to look for impending danger. So they could probably think, hey, my mum told me not to talk to strangers that are offering me all this kind of stuff. I don't want to do this. So it's all about nurturing that instinct. Again, it's something that's going to come over time. It's not going to happen straight away. Again, so it's good to do that and review chats that they may be engaging because it may not be who they seem. So I have some very horrible stories in the foster care system. So there was a child that was engaged in a chat for a while with somebody who was on Xbox and who was pretending to be a child. About 3 or 4 months later, it turns out that that wasn't actually the case, and the person actually tried to follow the child around schools and stuff, and eventually he was arrested and taken away. But again, that was quite real. It's quite an elaborate story, but it still just shows you that these kind of threats are real and it can happen. If possible, if your solution or whatever they may be using comes of it, enable parental controls just to help protect that child even more. Again, this is age dependent, so just protect them from any nefarious websites or nefarious activities online. When you're using unique devices, we have all these IoT smart devices, but a lot of them actually have safety and parental controls on, which you can use. So always refer to the manufacturer's manual and website on how to best protect your devices. So we can use content filtering as well. Again, we talked about these parental controls, enabling this software can help protect your child from the less reputable parts of the internet. I'm not going to dive into any specifics here.
Would you say that it's better for younger children to use gaming consoles such as Xboxes and PS5s or PS4s instead of using PC gaming?
So that's quite a hard question, but they're all as safe as each other. So PC gaming is safe, Xbox gaming is safe, but it's all depending how much you want to make it safe. So you can make a very anonymous PC gaming account using services like Steam. You can make a very anonymous account, but you are probably going to be susceptible to more malware. There's more malware that's going to be involved, but again, it really depends on how much you want to make yourself a target. I've been PC gaming for a long period of time. I've not had any problems. I've not seen any security issues. I use fake names. I'm careful with who I connect with, and I'm careful with what I install. I make sure I always get it from reputable vendors. So it's just about having that little bit of care, that little bit of
having the cyber awareness. Yeah.
Was that sorry?
Having the cyber awareness, because it's as secure as it can get, but at the end of the day, it's you, right? That is what social engineering is about.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're not going to target the device. I mean, why would a hacker sit between, tens of thousands of lines of code when he can just get somebody to let them in? That's always what I say to people. If you click a link and you let somebody in, that hacker has probably saved about, 3 or 4 days work because you've just let them through the front door. So it's all about understanding what's on the front of your house. What can they understand about you? And then just make sure it's all secure. And the goodie bag. So I've included some links here, which I think people can take away. So the slide deck is going to be available to download at the end of this. But there's going to be some links here that I think will be very useful for people. So we have the top 10 antivirus software, top 10 VPN services, Have I Been Pwned, so that website where you can check your email address against publicly disclosed data breaches. Keeping children safe online as well. That's a nice link to a website that help you protect your child online. Coffee shop data to go is actually a YouTube video, quite scary. So there's a sign outside of a coffee shop that says like our page for a free coffee. So when you like it, they've got your Facebook details, and then they send that detail off to these OSINT professionals that then give more data. And what they do is they present the coffee with all their data written on the coffee cup to the victim. And they look at it and they're shocked. So it's amazing what people can find. They find like banking details, passwords, emails, some medical data. It's quite scary. And then I've got the most popular online scams as well. So that's a top 10 list for 2020 of the most popular scams right now.
Awesome.
So please follow Protect Me on the relevant social media platforms. A really good company. I've had a really fun time engaging with this company. We've had some really good chats. And I'm on LinkedIn, so if you ever want to ask me a question, I'm going to be working with Protect Me on their LinkedIn for a while. So if you have a question for them, I might be there to answer it. If it's posed to me, but if it's towards them, just do it on their relevant social media pages.
Guys, we'll open the floor up to questions now, and we've got a lot of questions. You guys have been chatting for a bit, yeah? So let's open the floor up to some questions. Okay, so the first question that I've got is, if I have Windows Defender, do I really need a firewall?
No, so Windows Defender is good enough for home use, but just make sure it's enabled. So one of the problems that I see with Windows Defender is when you download something, you have something that pops up called Smart Screen. And what this does is this prompts you not to run this software. But if you go to advanced and more options, you can then run that software. So really dive into what you're downloading, because it can only stop what it been told to stop. If you allow something through, you undermine that product. But Windows Defender is really good, and it's good enough for home use.
Okay. Another question we have is, my teen children are constantly chatting on Discord servers and other platforms, which talk about Pop Idol fan clubs. What words of caution can you use?
Just be careful about who you're talking to. Discord is one of these platforms where you can be as anonymous as you want, or you can be as public as you want. But it's all about knowing who you're talking to and being careful what you share. Because at the end of the day, if it's someone nefarious, you've just given your details to some potentially dangerous people. People on the internet are not who they are, who they may seem. So just be careful. It's not like when you go to the park and you play with some of your friends and you know who they are. These are people that are hiding behind keyboards. So just be careful who you talk to and what you share.
Yeah. What are your views on accessing websites that don't use SSL certificates?
So it really depends on what information that you're going to be sending to that website.
Yeah.
So an SSL certificate or HTTPS, what that does is that will create a tunnel around the communication to that website. So if it's a website that's asking for sensitive information, credit card details, information about yourself, make sure it's using HTTPS. If it's something like a contact form or something like that, again, just be wary because your email address may now be open in the wild. My bit of advice would be if it hasn't got HTTPS, don't enter details.
I would in fact say don't go on that site. Even if you're not entering any sensitive data, just don't use it, right? It's not credible at all. And these days getting an SSL certificate is just a click of a button. So if they can't do that to protect their customers,
yeah,
why would you be on that site? Yeah. Okay. Another question we have is, some individuals are of the opinion that Mac OS is safer than Windows. Is that true?
No, simply not. And the reason why is because the reason why Windows is attacked so heavily is because it's being used by a very large amount of people. So they're going to attack the biggest user base, which is obviously Windows. But I've seen in the news recently, and I've seen a few engineers myself that have written malware for Linux. They've written malware for Mac OS. But at the end of the day, if you let the person in the front door, it doesn't matter what operating system you're using. If you give them enough information to attack you, they're already in your systems. Whatever you use, they now use. And that's what happens. That's what we see with organizations, that they will just click an email, they'll enter their credentials, and they've already logged into your system. So it really depends on how you perceive your own security. How are you going to secure yourself? Because you can have the most secure network, the most secure solution, the most secure operating system. But if you give someone keys to the kingdom, you can't stop them.
Fair enough. Okay. So how do you overcome a scamming attack which locks down your system in the middle of the night and there is no way to validate any info as the system is locked down? So can I just build on this? Actually, a friend of mine recently got hacked, and they had a flashing message on the Windows screen, and she got a call from a helpline support number asking her to pay $500. Yeah. And then they would unlock her. They basically held her ransom, and she could do nothing but basically pay the $500. So what advice would you give us for that?
So everybody's got one of these, a smartphone. What you should do is go onto your smartphone and type how to boot my system into safe mode. Boot your system into safe mode, and whatever browser or whatever process was taken over, make sure that you remove that application from the machine before we start that up into normal mode. When you're in safe mode as well, you can have the relevant security controls in place. You can run virus scans. Just make sure that you can remove whatever was causing the issue. Now, we normally find this happens to browsers. The browser jumps around the screen and it starts shaking. It starts putting itself as a top application. You can't go into any other processes. So you can simply end that task. Normally, if you Control-Alt-Delete, you can bring up Task Manager and delete it and delete that process that's causing that issue. But if that doesn't work, boot into safe mode, pick up your smartphone, look at YouTube videos on how to boot into safe mode, remove that application, reinstall it again fresh.
Also, I'd like to add that there are some pesky extensions which get downloaded. So just be careful of those as well when you're going on sites that have no validation, yeah? Also, okay, so the next question. We hear about Facebook and other social media platforms accessing our data. Isn't this something we should be worried about? In a world so dependent on the internet, are we safe at all?
So that's a very, very difficult question to answer. My answer would be yes, we are safe. We're not in any danger, or there's no threat to our actual existence or our life. But whatever you do on the internet is now it's not private as you think. You know, even using like VPNs, etc. It's not as private as you think. Every website is going to have data on you, but it's all about trusting those people to protect your data. I know Facebook hasn't got the best of reputation. They've had quite a rocky past. It's all about protecting yourself and only sharing what you want people to know about you and what you don't want people to know about you. So just make sure that if something that you don't want people to know, don't share it. You know, don't share it on Facebook, don't share it on Instagram. So just make your profile about what you want people to know about you, and then you should be okay. Facebook, their privacy is improving. I logged on to, I actually don't use Facebook, I only use the Messenger. But to reset my password, I have to rebuild my account again. Sorry. And then I have to reset my password for that means. And then I saw the privacy controls that they have in there now. You can actually request deletion of your data. And I think that takes up to like 45 days or 60 days. And then they send you proof that it's been deleted. But again, only share what you want people to know.
Okay, so the next question is, how do I protect my IoT devices, smart TVs, from being compromised in a connected or smart home?
So I would say refer back to the manufacturer's manual. So there may be default passwords on there, make sure they're all changed. I also say to people that if you are quite tech savvy, build another subnet or another network. So split your network into two, if you know what I'm talking about, and put your IoT devices onto a separate network. And then put all your home devices like your laptop, your gaming consoles onto another network. This way you have that kind of boundary in place. So kind of like a logical boundary in place. The problem that we see is a lot of IoT devices, they ship out with default passwords, default credentials, loads of services running with no security in place, and they expect you to do all the work. So yes, in this case, you're going to have to do the work, you're going to have to do the research, you're going to have to go to the manufacturer's website, and you're going to have to put those controls in yourself.
I also think a temporary and easy fix is to make sure your home Wi-Fi your private Wi-Fi network is very secure. Yeah, so set a good password.
Yeah.
Make sure it's secure. You know. Okay, and that brings us to our next question. Any tips on using public Wi-Fi?
VPN, straight away VPN. The problem that we see with public Wi-Fi is sometimes they like to capture traffic to know who their user base is. So make sure that you're using a VPN. And the problem is that if I'm on the same Wi-Fi network as you and you're not using a VPN, using some specialist tools, we can actually see your traffic. So I do recommend using a VPN solution. I actually use my personal recommendation. I use one called CyberGhost. I did used to use NordVPN, but I changed to CyberGhost. But any VPN solution that can hide your traffic is very good in that kind of situation.
Okay. So the next question, and I think this is a very interesting and valid question. Are there any tools available that can alert a parent should their children be involved in a scam? Example, get free V-Bucks on Fortnite as and when it happens. So just basically an alert.
So short answer, no. Long answer, potentially. So the long answer for that would be, if you have a parental control software that looks for keywords such as free Robux or something like that, so you can put like keywords together, and if your child starts to search that in search engines, it might alert you to that they're doing that. So it may give you that preemptive, that preemptive strike kind of mentality that that they're probably going to be attacked imminently. So you could probably pick up the phone and say, hey, don't get those free Robux. Actually, I'm going to buy you some tonight. Don't get any from the free generator that you're about to download that's going to steal all my data. But another bit of advice would be if they're using your laptop or your device, set them up their own account with least privileges. So don't give them admin rights to install stuff. So then if they need to install something, you can come over and you can check it yourself and you can say, hey, that's not actually reputable software. Don't install that. So that's another good bit of advice as well.
And I think just having an open conversation with your children and asking them what they're doing online is also very important and a very good tool, actually. So why not do?
That's the exact same concept that we do with security awareness training. We just talk to the users. Yeah. And then that's what the parents doing with the child. They're talking to the user. And it's all about, you know, building that kind of relationship, nurturing that kind of culture into that individual. Because we're not born to know how to cross a road and look both ways, not knowing how to cross a road safely. It's something that's nurtured into us.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is, VPNs are banned in the UAE. So what is an alternate solution?
Ooh, it's a very difficult question.
Yeah. Let us get back to you on that one. I will personally.
So I would probably go home and do my research on that one, but I would say for the time being, connect to networks that you personally trust. So if it's like your work network or your home network, maybe just connect to those. Try to refrain from public networks for now. Just be careful about what you share over that line. So back to the HTTPS, if you're sharing personal information to that website, it's encrypted by that HTTPS tunnel. So just be careful about what you visit.
All right. The next question is, how do you know when your social media account gets hacked? And how do you protect yourselves now since the whole world is on social media?
So what I like to do is, if you set up 2FA on a lot of your machine, a lot of your accounts, you actually get an alert to say somebody's tried to log in. So and then you can say, okay, I'm in London at the moment. Well, why is it suddenly logging in from Russia? That's a bit weird. So it starts to give you that alert. You can also tune your social media accounts to give you notifications via email, via text message when something happens, like a new login. So if you have a new login, it will give you a text message to say, hey, you've just logged in from this device. I would say if you've got any social media accounts, long passwords, two-factor authentication all the time.
Okay. Any tips on how to get hackers out of your system once they get in?
Firewall. So if you've got a malware that's in your system and you can see that it's calling out to a certain IP address, and then when you research the IP address, it's actually a command and control server for a botnet, simply use a firewall and block any ingress traffic or inbound traffic, and block the outbound traffic from that malware. So hackers are going to be using malware. They're going to be using what we call reverse shells or payloads. That's going to enable them to run commands. If you simply stop that connection, they're not in anymore. Because what we've got to understand is a lot of these connections, they're a two-way thing. There's a response, there's a request, and there's a response always to a connection. And what you've got to understand is this connection is kept alive. And if you suddenly block it on the firewall, this connection is broken and there's no attacker in your network anymore.
All right. So our next question is, I find it very difficult for old people to protect themselves against hacking activities as they don't have much skills. Any advice?
Awareness. I think for people that have not been, so the problem we see with the older generation is that they weren't born into it, they were just introduced to it. Yeah. And if you don't want anything to do with it, you're not going to learn about it. So they might not know too much about technology. So it's just about building the awareness. It's not like my generation where we was born into technology. It's our life. We're pretty much connected every single day. The older generation were introduced to it. So it's all about building that awareness up. The number one way to stop an attacker is to be aware and to be vigilant and just validate everything. And that's the problem we see. You can have the best firewalls, the best network. You can have this super duper secure operating system. But again, if you give them the keys to the castle, they're going to come straight through the front door.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to add that it's very important for us as the younger generation to bridge the gap for that older generation, right? So we should be patient. We should actually take some time out and make them aware. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question, how do we remediate if physical addresses are breached?
Oh, like your home address, I assume. I would, at that point, if your physical address has been breached, I would inform local authorities that this is what's happened. The company that has breached your details, they need to, as your client, assure your safety. So inform them. At that point in time, I would get local authorities involved, especially if you're in immediate danger, if you're getting threats, if you're getting weird kind of physical mail come through your door. At that point, it becomes quite serious. There's immediate danger. Get law enforcement involved.
Okay. Is MAC filtering on routers, firewalls effective?
Yes and no. So MAC filtering will only allow X, Y, and Z devices to connect to that network. But MAC filtering is actually a layer 2 protocol. And what I mean by that is only on the local network. If this actually extends across to other network boundaries, it's not going to do anything at all. You want to be doing it by IP address. Again, this boils down to what's connecting to that network. Because even if you allow your device to only connect to that network, and you compromise yourself and you download some malware, they're still in your network. So what you need to do is have a bit more of a smarter solution. So maybe some host intrusion protection, some good smart firewalls that's on your actual software solution on your machine that's blocking that attack proactively. So if it sees that there's these weird inbound, outbound connections to these command and control servers, it's going to block that for you. So I would say always use a firewall when possible.
Okay. So our next question is, I've researched SASE over the past few weeks, and it seems to be the way moving forward to replace VPNs to a cloud security platform. Any comments?
So again, it really depends on the use case. So if it's for an organization, I would say yes, because it's probably going to be dealing with a high level of traffic. If it's more for home use, I would say just use a VPN where possible. Because what seems to happen is even if you're connected to a public network, there's still that immediate request and response that's going on from you to the breakout point or to the router. So in that kind of scenario, you want to be using a VPN. But if it's for an organization, if you have a different solution that's able to deal with high levels of traffic, but still offer the same kind of level of security, then that's something to go for.
Okay. Can you share your thoughts on access of willful apps like TikTok versus Pegasus?
So I actually have quite a negative opinion on TikTok itself. So I think TikTok is quite intrusive in people's life. People seem to share too much. And it actually gives me the opportunity as if I was an attacker, I can now see a bit more into people's lives. So what you see is lots of children making these videos in their homes and stuff. And that gives me the chance to pause the videos, have a look around the house, maybe have an idea of what location it is, zoom into different parts of the video, just to try and see if I can find more information. I think I read a story before that there was one video where somebody managed to compromise an organization because they had all their mail they had their mail that was sitting on the shelf. If you zoomed in, you could see the addresses and stuff like that. You understand who works there. And it's just going back to that old adage, just be careful about what you share and just ensure that what you're sharing is not too much and you're not giving away too much information.
Okay. The next question is, which is the best VPN model one can use to subscribe to and regularly use for protection?
So it really depends that really boils down to use case, what you're using it for. So if you're using it for streaming, you might want a really fast VPN connection. So a lot of them offer streaming VPN services where they're very quick, they've got high bandwidth, or you want that top level security. So it's always down to the use case. Me personally, I use CyberGhost. I've used NordVPN, I've used Xpert F.A.C.T in the past. I've just recently moved to CyberGhost. But again, all boils down to your personal preference and what you want to use it for.
Also, we are going to be providing you guys with a goodie bag that was in the presentation. It's going to be provided to you guys, so you guys can go through the best VPNs, the best antiviruses, etc. And you guys can take an educated call for yourselves, depending on what your use case is. Yeah. Okay. So the next question, and I think this will be our last question. if you're a small to medium enterprise, how do you build and secure websites? What are the dangers? What are the dangers you see when people post their, okay, so these are two questions. Let's address the first one. What are dangers you see when people post their personal pictures on social media?
So ensure that there's something when you post a picture, there's something called EXIF data, which is data or metadata or data about the data. And it's actually got a lot of information about where that picture was taken, what it was taken with. So it could have your location details in. So I know websites like Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, they actually scrub the data before they post it. But you just want to ensure it. So if you are going to post something that's quite sensitive, you may have taken it in your home and you don't want people to know that location. There's plenty of tools out there that actually go and scrub that data from that picture. When you do take a picture, just take a look at the picture and see what information is inside it. Because inside that picture, it may have maybe a pass, a work pass or something like that with your employee number on. I think I told you a story about the QR code where somebody had a QR code on their badge. You scanned it, it took you to a website for their employee login portal. So just be careful about what's actually inside the picture.
All right. And our last question for today, if you're a small to medium enterprise, how do you build and secure your website?
So again, it boils down to how secure do you want to make it. There's lots of different tools out there that can scan the website and give you recommendations based on what the scan has found. Also, a lot of websites seem to use a lot of plugins. These plugins should be treated as third-party applications and also always ensure that they're always kept up to date. And if there's security advisories, don't ignore them. Just take them on the chin and do the update. So it's all about how secure do you want to make it. And also using proper certificate management, understanding that when your certificate expires, you need to upload that certificate almost immediately or prior to the expiration of that certificate. I always recommend people, if you're going to build a website, look at OWASP top 10, understand the potential attacks and threats that can happen to your website.
All right. So that's the end of our webinar. And we just put out a poll saying, do you think tech companies need to do more to protect their users? So Jay, we'd like your take on that.
Yes. We live in this world now that we're connected so heavily. You can pick up the phone and almost in 2 seconds, you can connect to anybody in the world at any place at any time. So we're in such a heavily connected world. The problem that we see is that there's so much data out there now and people aren't aware of the dangers. People just share whatever they want. They click on whatever they want. They're not aware of the dangers and not aware of the nefarious activity that happens on the internet. So it's good just to make people aware that actually what happens could potentially impact you negatively. So it's all about building that awareness, but going that step further and taking that awareness to the next level and giving people actionable advice, what they can take home, protect themselves and protect their family as well.
Yeah. So guys, that's a wrap with the questions. And our next webinar with Xpert F.A.C.T is going to be based on social engineering again, but keeping in mind how it affects corporates and how it affects SMEs, yeah, and the psychology of going into a social engineering attack from that aspect. And we actually have Matt Sutter with us and his team coming on in the first week of September, yeah. And it's actually going to be a really interesting continuation to this topic of social engineering. And Jay, it's been a pleasure having you on here.
Thank you for having me. It's been really good working with you guys recently.
And I want to thank all the participants for their love and support. We're getting so many comments on you, Jay, saying how great you were today, and I completely agree.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, so that's a wrap. We'll catch you in the first week of September, and we'll continue our social engineering series then, yeah, for corporates. All right.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
Well, I'd like to wish everyone a really good day and take care. Everyone stay safe.
Have a good weekend, yeah? All right.
And you take care. Have a great day.
Bye. See you.